Hello, everybody. Welcome to another daily dose of gaming news and all that good stuff. And as always, I also publish on Rumble and on Patreon for extra support. Um, some updates regarding the channel. Yesterday, I did manage to publish the final episode of Dead Stranding 1. I wrapped up in the middle because after I recorded this, I already finished the main story. So the main base game, let's say, it's already done. I probably did almost everything except from a couple of orders, um, like the standard orders. And I was in the middle of a process of trying to get them all like triple S or double S kind of ratings on those orders. After I recorded it, was that hiatus of around about, I don't know how many months, at least 3 or 4 months. So again, and because Death Stranding 2 came out to PC, so I basically gave up, let's say, of trying to accomplish what I wanted on Death Stranding 1. But yeah, it wraps up basically out of nowhere to a certain degree because I had some plans on completing some orders there. But the main story is wrapped up, so I will quit per se, but the main thing of the game is basically done. Regarding VODs, I will start doing them next week, so Monday. So starting to publish the VODs from the live streams that I've been doing on Death Stranding 2. Again, I cannot commit to a consistent schedule on those streams. I try to stream as much as I can. I've been able to at least 2 to 3 hours per day. By the end of my day, before going to bed, I stream a little bit there. Probably, I don't know. I will try to incorporate on the streams themselves, maybe kind of wrap up of gaming news that I might have missed during what I usually do on the gaming news programs. I don't know. Maybe something, a format. I will know. A first half an hour of the stream, trying to go about seeing some news on the I don't know gaming industry in general terms of stuff that I have missed. I don't know, and then do the streaming of the game. But yeah, it's something to think about. But again, if I go about that, again, the VODs will be just the gameplay, edit out all the breaks and all that jazz, and the news coverage. If I'm going in that way, I'm not sure yet. Something to just not just put gaming again, something to complement on what I already do in the channel here. Again, something to think about. We'll see how this goes. Other than that, everything is on playlists on the main page of the channel. Everything they're already done here. And the Haptic Gameplay series, again, we got the streams if you want to catch up on them. I will then eventually put Death Stranding DC on the 4K completed gameplay series. Again, I managed to stream around about 1440p 60 frames. I usually record 4K 60, so the VODs will have a better quality than the live streams themselves. It's what I can go about doing at this moment in time. But yeah, and let's go to the news, see what we got here. We got, again, regarding the 12-volt power pin cable shenanigans, again, we have kind of an update from ASUS. They are debuting the Rogue, what they call Rogue Equalizer 12-volt 2x6 cable, supposedly to protect GPU connectors from melting again. I still maintain my position here. NVIDIA and their GPUs and the consortium that came up with this 12-volt power pin connector, again, is a shit show. It's a flawed design. And until this design is addressed, again, I do give some compliments to the companies that are trying to correct this around about the implementation of the 12-volt power pin or the 16-pin connection design there, which is already flawed, and trying to rectify that externally. It's commendable, but it's not solving the problem themselves. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I think I know a little bit of electric connections enough to identify that As long as this problem is not addressed specifically from the consortium, which includes NVIDIA and also AMD and other manufacturers, again, this problem will still persist because we've been seeing to a certain degree every new GPU that is launched, specifically on the high end, power demands will continue to increase overall. I think we already see some 5090s editions from AIBs, basically using two of these power connectors to try and mitigate basically what the promise is from the 16 power connector. But yeah, similarly, what this new solution from ASUS does, from my understanding, is they have better cables to handle the load because the 600-watt capabilities of this connection, there is a huge strain even on the implementation of this solution. Usually the cables, theoretically and on paper, they didn't account the higher tolerances that, for example, the usually PCI connectors have. They have, I think, almost 50% overhead in terms of dealing with peak loads of the current. The cables are way more tolerable than what the usual capabilities of the potential loads that we see in these cables. And 60 power connectors, one of the things is the resistance. I think the main problem with this connector is the resistance on the connection side of things, and the fact that on the GPU itself there isn't a module to balance the load between all the 6 cables that deliver this power needed for the GPU to function. Because usually how power on PCs works is it is the components that demand the power from the PSU, and the PSU just delivers by default. And in the connection, specifically in this 12 volt power pins, 12 volt 16 pin connection, is there is no such controller anymore. If not mistaken, again, it's kind of rehash a little bit. I think the 3090 Ti, if not mistaken, don't quote me on that, there was the first ever GPU to have this 16 pin connection, or the 12 volt power pin, and it had at the time like a sensor or regulator, current regulator on the GPU itself, so we can demand the power between each cable, because the PSU doesn't differentiate the cables themselves. It just sends the overall power needs that the GPU demands, and the GPU is the one that is basically regulating the power needs for each cable. And that's the reason that we see a lot of incidents occurring with this connection, because basically these new GPUs, even the 5090s, they don't have like a regulator on the load for each, to try to regulate the load from each cable, from again each 6 cables that deliver power, because the other 6 are just ground cables. But yeah, these new cables from ASUS solution, they increase the tolerance from an average of 9.2 amperes to 17 amperes, which helps on the cable side of things. But then again, when it reached the stranglehold of all of this in terms of the power output, is the connection itself. Again, as a reminder, the physical connector of the 16 pin cables are physically smaller than the usual per pin, at least from the older PCI 8 and even PCI 6 express cables, which lends itself of having a smaller surface of contact when the electricity passes through the cable and to the connector itself. And it lends to itself having more resistance on the connection if it is not properly seated. Again, the connector itself is already, because it's smaller, the tolerances are even smaller for the connector to have a good connection on the being on the PSU side or the GPU side. And the fact that there is less tolerance, there is let's say, breeding for potential issues on the resistance of the connection themselves of the connectors, which lends itself to higher temperatures, because then if there is a resistance on that connection, that there is less power being delivered, so the demands from the GPU will become higher to try compensate that resistance, and we see that that increases the temperatures themselves. And then again, if the connector is not well manufactured with the proper materials, it tends to overheat and potentially melt and caught fire, because again, plastic starts to melt and all that jazz. And because the higher the temperature, the more resistant it breathes by itself. And yeah, it's a huge problem that I think should be addressed. Again, I'm not an engineer again, but usually I think this common sense solution for this is for them to redesign the physical connection of the 12-volt power pin, 16-pin connector to per pin to at least be in the same physical size that the 8-pin PCI Express connectors that we have from the older GPUs that we used, where they use this power connection, because the tolerances are higher, the physical connection is it's a little bit bigger, and again, the fittings, when it fits the cable, the connector between the GPU and the PSU side, there is no kind of wrongdoing there. You just know when it fits properly, when it clicks. The overall design is way better. I think you can redesign this 12-volt power pin around the same kind of way on the 8 PCI Express. Again, the physical connection will be a little bit bigger, but I think, again, given that the modern PC cases and all that jazz can tolerate this kind of bigger, and even the components can tolerate a little bit of a connection there. But yeah, I commend ASUS trying and other companies trying to go around and try to solve a problem outside of the main issue that I think it is. But even though we don't know exactly how we achieved it, I don't know if the PSU has like a limiter on how much power it sends per cable, which I don't think that it's possible, but I don't think in terms of how you design a power supply, having that extra steps there, again, it will increase for sure the price of the PSU. But again, they are trying to overcome the issue by putting better cables, basically, with higher tolerances. But again, the way usually it works is the PSU usually doesn't basically command how much power it goes through each cable. It's the GPU that demands that power and try to get the power from wherever possible between these 6 cables, and not having kind of a regulator there. It's one of the main things. And the fact that the physical connection is way smaller, the tolerances are even lower in terms of how resistance and the power delivery works. Again, that's my understanding of this situation. And again, as you can see, the cables here are way bigger, but again, the connection itself on the GPU and on the PSU is smaller. So I don't see where this will go, except for I think they need to redesign this, think a little bit on the engineering side and redesigning the connector itself, and finding also a proper solution on the GPU side of things, on having like kind of a regulator load kind of a thing there, so the cables don't go out of their own tolerances there. I think it's a better and more proper solution for this situation here. But yeah, ASUS is debating kind of not outside of the box, but outside the main issue, trying to cover all of that. We see from also not Grizzly Bear. Oh my God, I completely forgot the name of the guy. You got some like temperature and load sensors there, but again, the fact that it is a sensor is not regulating anything. It's just kind of an alarm if something goes wrong on the extreme side of things. But then again, when it goes, supposedly when the alarm goes off, things are already going bad. So it's just trying to mitigate any damage that might occur on the hardware. Is not basically, even though again, I commend people trying to fix this situation, but again, as long as this design is not redesigned, I think we will continue, especially on upcoming GPUs that for sure the 6090 and the such, or even RDNA 5 GPUs if they continue or in this case if AMD start implementing as a default this kind of connectors without proper solutions on the design implementation of things, we will continue to see this situation happen. And to a certain degree, again, a certain degree now, I do blame the consortium that went about designing this connector, so the 12-volt power 16 pins connector solution. I continue to blame them of again flawed design on the engineering side of this. But yeah, we'll see how this will go. Hopefully, they again. I think they need even. I think the solution is come up with a redesign and call it a completely different name, so people don't get confused. Because again, we've been seeing the confusion of ATX 3.1 or 3.0. It's different from 3.1. We got the 12-volt power 2 by times 6, and then redesign. There is a lot of some differences. Some of them are not compatible with others. Again, the fact that especially NVIDIA is not fixing from their own side, the GPU side, which is it can be a little bit more expensive of bill of materials side of things, but again, the GPU is already expensive. Again, I think there's need some proper addressing of this problem, or else we'll continue to see a lot of RMAs continue to go about regarding this GPUs situation, which is not good. But yeah, regarding this, again, if I see more news or interesting things to cover, I will let you know. And then we got, again, Microsoft is a complete shit show also, specifically on the Windows side of things, and the integration of Copilot. So we saw the CEO, I think they mandated every person that needs to use inside of Microsoft, that uses a PC, they need to have a Copilot AI assistant, which is insane. And the fact that they're trying to put every application that it is integrated with Windows to have a Copilot feature. Again, what they are doing now is kind of backtracking on that, but it's only start dialing back on the branding side of things here, because the apps will continue to have the Copilot integrated, but the branding, or in this case, as you can see here on the screenshot, the symbol of the Copilot is no longer featured. It is replaced by another symbol, as you can see here. Even on, especially this comes on the notepad, because I don't know why the hell we're going to have a Copilot feature on the notepad, which is just basically serves a lot for copy paste stuff there. And again, what they are doing here is basically they are only removing the symbol basically, because the feature itself is not being removed. And again, I think this is for them to trying to hide and trying to mitigate the backlash, let's say, that people are getting at Microsoft. So basically they are hiding, they are not removing. And again, I don't think sometimes these journalists, let's say, or people that write these articles are not aware how corporate mindset works. Even here on the article, they wrap up here. It's a good sign that Microsoft has finally recognized the issue and started scaling back Copilot branding. But again, the problem persists. It's just in a different color, let's say, in core Windows apps. Again, and still they think hopefully eventually it will lead to the removal of Copilot button from PC keyboards, which is not going to happen. Again, they are trying to put down our throats this Copilot and AI shit, because again, I understand, and to a certain degree, I think it's in some use case scenarios, which it's not AI, it's machine learning stuff. It can be integrated if it is integrated properly in certain functions, even in the Windows 11 workspace on certain apps can be something to take out of it. But then again, we always know that these functions usually you have to have a Microsoft account, and it pulls data from your PC for them to for those applications or the feature of Copilot works, they have to connect to the server to give you a help. So they are siphoning data out of RPCs to help you, let's say, on any kind of supposedly utility that Copilot has, depending on the application that you are using. And again, this is not something that you can, at least at my perception, you cannot run locally. This Copilot feature without, for example, if you disconnect from the net, I assume that Copilot will not work properly because it says it doesn't have a connection to the server that does the help that you need. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, SteamOS eventually will have a greater integration and implementation of how you can kind of make some competition within Windows 11 in terms of ease of use for usually normal users, and to be also have again, the SteamOS is more for gaming, but if they can add, I don't know, something like you when you install Windows 11, you just install SteamOS and you have kind of the same thing that you have on Windows. I think it's possible on Linux to have that, but again, there is no simple way of going about it, from my understanding. That's why I also did not take a jump to Linux, because there are certain software that might have some issues and all that jazz outside of gaming. That's why I didn't straight jump to the SteamOS there. But yeah, again, I just hope that we have some good competition with Windows, so they can start losing their share, market share, and maybe start seeing some changes on how these things with freaking AI all over the place for normal persons there. In terms of games, we continue with the DLSS thing here again. Some people are pro this, I don't know what it called, feature of what they call DLSS 5. I think it's more a feature. I think when it was presented poorly. I think this should have kind of an extra feature more than anything else, because we know from the information, and I can redirect from the Daniel Owen video where he asked for extra information and specific information of what this feature does, specifically regarding the AI filter, because it is an AI filter, because mainly the thing that it does, this feature, let's say, is just take the data from the 2D frame plus motion vectors. So try to guess where the next frame will be, but it only takes in account the 2D frame, so the image that you see, and then puts a filter on it and try to make it more realistic. At least that's the default of this feature. Supposedly, developers can control that, but then again, it's not taking into account the 3D environment of the game engine itself. So it's not taking the 3D spatial things that the engine is running for you to present the game in the 2D way. It's this feature only takes the final image that it's shown to you and tries to put a filter on it in real time. That's what basically this feature does. Which basically is just an AI filter. It's like basically when you upload a photograph to Instagram and apply a filter. That's basically what it does, but in a video. Basically, it's what it's doing there. It's not doing what they are trying to make people perceive what it's doing, which is supposedly picking up all the information that the game engine is processing and then trying to make it more realistic, or supposedly with some slides here and there for the developers have control. This is basically what this supposedly DLSS 5 on does, which I think should be presented as an extra feature of the package that DLSS is supposed to be. But I think people need to understand this, is that it's just, but what this thing is just putting a filter on the image that you are seeing. It's not taking any inputs from the game engine itself. It's only the final image that basically people see on the monitor. Basically, that's my understanding of how this works, given the answers that Daniel Owen tried to follow up on the first time that this came out. And he was very specific on the questions and the answers that we got. Basically, it is that basically an AI filter. Now you can discuss how the AI filter is being applied or not, if it is good or not, but it is an AI filter. And we got some upcoming game, which is Phantom Blade Zero, which is a game that I'm very excited for. Hopefully, it's a good one. Seems more action-like kind of a game than the Dark Souls-like games that coming out. I think it's more kind of more straightforward, kind of small levels where you can tackle in different ways, but it's more action oriented. Seems a good one. But yeah, the developers here, again, I'm not sure if it is regarding the fact that Phantom Blade Zero was officially announced as being support of DLSS 5 kind of a thing there. Again, I think there is some confusion also in the developer side, because I suppose that NVIDIA presented DLSS 5 as just an upscaler kind of a thing there. And then because we saw on the news that also NVIDIA didn't tell the developers this specific AI filter thing there, and to a certain extent, I think Resident Evil 9 was one of the examples that didn't even told the developers that the presentation will get the Resident Evil 9 presentation there of that supposedly new technology. But supposedly they are trying to reiterate, the developers from Phantom Blade Zero, that they will not use any AI visual tech that could alter our artist's original creative intent. Again, it can be whatever it is. But yeah, hopefully they are not. I think this is trying to tackle several things at the same time with this statement. Because we saw also with Crimson Desert, there is the WIP stuff, which is the temporary assets that you usually use as a placeholder. Some studios are using AI to just use it as a placeholder and then replace it in a later stage before the game is launched. Again, depending on the quality of optimization and the test, quality testing and Q&A there that they do. Some things might miss, like he did with Crimson Desert. Supposedly there were some paintings that were very weird. They seemed very AI generated, and then they said it was some placeholder stuff that, again, slipped through the Q&A phase of the game. But yeah, I think they're trying to tackle that also, trying to make sure that everything is handcrafted. So there was a person involved in the creation of that asset and the design of the game itself. But yeah, we'll see how this goes, if it is or not. But I assume so. To a certain degree, I think they're going to try and distance. A lot of studios will try to distance themselves from this DLSS 5 support, because again, I think this was presented not in the best way. The DLSS 5, again, I'm assuming DLSS 5 is kind of an improvement on the machine learning algorithm in terms of the upscaler thing and even the frame generation. I think this thing, the filter stuff, should have been presented more as a feature, not the technology itself. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how this will evolve or not. But yeah, this is what I got here from DLSS 5. Then we got Crimson Desert. Supposedly they're going to do more updates to the game. Again, I still not buy the game. Again, I'm focused on Dead Stranding 2 at the moment. But similarly, again, this, for me, from what I'm getting, this game is pretty good on the sandbox aspect of how you interact with game systems and all that jazz, more than trying to play the game for the story itself, because similarly, it's the weakest part of this game. But yeah, it's one of those games kind of like Just Cause was years ago. I remember playing Just Cause 2, and the sandbox thing regarding activities, what you can do there, was pretty interesting, and I enjoy it. And this Crimson Desert seems like an upgraded version of that, more than anything. Again, we'll see how they evolve. I don't know if they can correct anything regarding story-wise, but yeah, it seems that they'll be adding now difficulty settings. Again, each to their own. There is going to be also some kind of feature where you can challenge bosses again. and again after defeating them, which is basically a boss rematch feature. Also, there is the reblockading feature, which basically makes the enemies to have a chance to seize player liberated locations once more. Again, this seems interesting because it's kind of, I don't know, Far Cry 3 had that base conquering things there where you conquer a base and it gets yours, kind of a thing there. And basically, this is lets the enemies trying to have a chance to reclaim it again, so it keeps you a little bit on edge, so it's not you just conquer that challenge and you can't forget it. It might be good. I think if it's implemented well, it can be an excellent feature because you always on the edge of have to at least reconquer again, but you can't try and do and go about in a different way when you did the first conquering of that location. I think there is something there that can be used very well. And then basically, supposedly based on community feedback, the developers will add skills equivalent to Force Palm and Axiom Force. Again, I'm not sure, I never saw this on the game, to the other two playable characters. And then also a new option to hide weapon worn on the main character's back will be added, ensuring that certain equipment doesn't break the illusion of combat. Then there are also several quality of life things. And one of them, I think it was inventory management, one of the main complaints of players. And they will include dedicated storage for food, wardrobe, gatherables, and collection stuff there again. And then also on the mount side of things, more mounts and pets are being prepared, and dedicated armor for other mounts will be available too. Okay. And then also they plan to add customization options for certain controller inputs, which is always good in these kind of games where you have a lot of inputs overall. And they will expand also the range of configurable keys of keyboard and mouse users, which is even better. It's one of the complaints that they simply didn't have any customizable keys, especially for keyboard and mouse users, which again, I think is a must on PC gaming. But yeah, basically they will also continue on the optimization side of things in terms of visuals and all that jazz and RT shader stuff there. There is already some mods here and there on the character side that seem to be good. From at least that's a perception that I got. Sorry, but yeah, at least they are trying to improve the game, which is always good to see. Again, this is the game when it came out was not a total failure, but again, it was not, I assume, not polished enough to have a better score, let's say, or better reviews there. And then on the other side of things, we got kind of marathon game thing here, and this is to tackle more about the gaming budgets that we are seeing. And again, marathon, which I don't know, it's not a game for me. Usually, these kind of games are not for me. It's supposedly this game, the budget was at least or roundabouts, let's say, giving the benefit of doubt, it cost around $250 million. And this does not include ongoing costs of maintenance and new content that is being introduced on the game. Again, as I said, this is kind of a staple of what we call AAA gaming scene. We've been seeing this. We also saw this on Marvel Spider-Man 2. It costs around 300 million to make. There is other games that are overing all of them around 200 to 300 millions. We got Concord, which was a mess. I think over around almost $500 million. Even the Skull and Bone games. Again, the fact that it was 10 years in development hell, I think also cost basically around $500 million, if not mistaken, if my memory serves right. Again, this this is a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because again, the mentality, it seems, from the financial part of the studios, they think just by putting more money on the development side of things automatically will give them more money, or it's equivalent to more sales, which is, we know that it's not how things work. Same thing can be said to a certain degree how Hollywood studios work, or started working for a few years from now, when we saw, I don't know, some, again, even some games are costing more than Hollywood movies are costing now, because Hollywood already catch up, because they also have a production cycle, a lower production cycle than games have. Usually movies, when they start between, I think, pre-production to release, it can be 1 to 2 years, give or take, depending on the project, while games usually have a production cycle bigger in terms of time frames, usually 5 years or so. That doesn't mean that justified for them to have a bigger cycle. And again, I don't want to say that, for example, developers should earn less than anybody else. Again, it's not an easy job for sure. But the fact is, I think it went on the mentality of the shareholders, thinking that the fact that if you spend more, automatically you sell more in terms of copies. Again, or if the quality is going to be better because you invest more. Not usually the case, specifically on gaming production, because again, it depends on the whole creative project of building a game. And the fact that you have more people, I think it starts to get in the way of having a better game to a certain extent. And again, the fact that Marathon costing around about $250 million doesn't make a lot of sense, given that so far, and I'm not sure. I think it came out last year. Again, I didn't follow up on Marathon too much, because it's not a game for that I usually like to play these kind of games, the multiplayer stuff. They are shooters, but it said that again, only sold so far around about 1 million copies. Again, it's nothing. We saw, for example, Slay the Spire 2 already sold almost 5 million copies, and it's still on early access. And it's a game for a very small indie studio. It's one of those things when people can't see, or the customer, let's say, can't see when the project is focused on what they're trying to do. It makes all the difference. And the Marathon, being that we saw from the Bungie CEO, I think it's previous CEO, all the shenanigans happening there inside the studio, all the troubles, and spending a lot of money. And I think, again, the fact that you spend more money on the project, that doesn't necessarily mean that the developers are earning more, even though a lot of the production cost might go to the development of that game itself. Again, doesn't mean that the developers are earning more. It just means that you have, for example, more developers, so you have to have more budget for that. Usually, it's like it's the problem with AAA space games is it's working more like a corporation more than anything else. So basically, the few people on the top will earn the disparity of earnings there to the normal person, the brunt force of the developers are earning less, because again, it's kind of a cheap layer kind of a thing there. It's kind of the same thing if you compare it, for example, in Amazon. Again, the persons that are doing the deliveries don't earn basically a livable wage comparatively to the guy that owns the company or runs the company. In this case, Jeff Bezos, it's almost, I don't know, give it a couple of years, he's going to be a trillionaire. Again, the disparity of this doesn't mean that the fact that it has more money, that the money is well distributed, let's say, or fairly distributed, you can call it. But yeah, this is kind of the hitting the problem that, again, this does mean that probably studios will have to have leaner teams or smaller teams that are more focused on how the game should be done. Maybe there is a justification for them to trying to use AI tools to be more lean. I don't know. Again, as I've been saying, I do believe, into a certain degree, AI, which is not a generative AI, but machine learning tools, can be used pretty well in pipeline production in certain phases, in certain crucial things that might be monotonous to do, and always, again, with some human supervision on top of it. But like the brunt things, the I don't know, the things that need to be done in a I don't know, kind of a factory work style things in terms of the pipeline on game production can be helped with machine learning tools, and then of course supervised by a human interfacer to validate the work itself. I think it can cut some costs there and cut some time in the production cycle of a game. But yeah, it's one of those things that there are good sides and bad sides of everything that it's done there. But yeah, hopefully these AAA companies start to see that it's not by the fact that you just put more money, because then you have to earn more, you have to sell more copies to justify the investment made. And then this also, to a certain degree, okay, if we're not going to sell this much copies, we need to start ramping up the prices of the games themselves. And then we see the discussion of GTA 6 needs to be $100 to justify almost $1 billion production cycle. I don't think it's the way to go. Again, just reduce the expenses to the maximum so you can justify selling a game at a reasonable price. And if the game is good, of course, it will sell. Usually it sells a lot. But yeah, just wrap up here on gaming news sides. We got, I think, the Triple I initiative kind of a thing there. Again, I think it's kind of a showcase. I watched a couple of trailers from games that might pick up my interest, and the only one that I saw, at least the one that I caught, was this game. So, The Lift. Again, seems an interesting game. It kind of, the gist of it is you're basically a handyman, or basically it's a supernatural handyman simulator kind of a thing there. So you got a lot of puzzles, you got some engineering stuff, you got electrical puzzle stuff in there, you got to clean. It's very interesting because the gist is there was this institute. I didn't watch that much again, but I got the sense this is good. Basically, any man renovating a massive research facility abandoned after a mysterious incident. The Lift is a nearly first-person simulator with satisfying house-flipping gameplay, mind-bending story, highly interactive world inspired by Soviet sci-fi and SCP Foundation. Again, I don't know what this is here, but yeah, it seems very interesting. At least the hook of the game itself. Got some puzzling there. I'm assuming some roguelike aspects can be made because I'm not sure, unless you get stuck on the puzzles until you solve them. I don't know. I will need more information regarding the gameplay systems there. But again, the gist of the game seems pretty interesting. And I think every time you start doing things on the levels, things will get bigger in scale and more complicated puzzles. Again, I think it might be a good game, but it's only for the next year. I will assume throughout this year we'll have a little bit more information regarding that. But yeah, regarding games, this is what I got. Just going to wrap up with some gaming deals. We got Ayla. I remember covering the upcoming of this game a couple of times, and now it's on sale 25% off. Again, it seems very interesting. Basically, if a first person horror game here, again, seems interesting. I will be trying them one of these days, I think. Let's see, depending on my schedule there. But yeah, it's on sale 25% off. It seems a decent game here. We got Cairn. I'm not sure how to properly read this, but it's a climbing game. I played a little bit of the demo when it came out, which is not available at this time, which is interesting. Seems an interesting one. Again, very positive feedback from the players. Again, it's a climbing game. You got some management after the climbs and all that jazz. Again, it's trying to reach the top of a mountain. And again, all that ensues there. Again, 15% off. Probably is a good game if you like this kind of games there. We got also Cocoon puzzle game, 50% off. Again, award-winning game, so it's one of those that seems pretty good. And I did like the presentation and what I've been seeing from this game. We got also Darkness Dungeon, kind of turn-based combat, dungeon crawler roguelike kind of dark fantasy RPG kind of a thing there. 85% off on the base game, and then we got several editions with adds more content and bosses and all that jazz there. Then you got also Journey. Again, recommend this game. I played on console a few years ago. 75% off. I do recommend this game even after all these years. We got Lorelei and Laser Eyes. It seems a pretty good game, kind of a puzzle game also. Seems interesting, and it's 50% off. So, and I think it won a couple of awards, if not mistaken. But yeah, seems interesting, very intriguing. Then we got Nino Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom. Again, this is the sequel of the first game, a JRPG kind of a thing there. Ghibli animation, Studio Ghibli animation style lookalike, and it's 84% off, so I think it's an interesting one. We got also Okami HD still on sale, 50% off. Again, this is a very well known game. We got Stray, play as a cat, nothing else to say there. Again, award-winning game, overwhelming positive feedback, and it's 40% off. And then finally, we got the Thaumaturge, kind of RPG, single-player, isometric style thing there. Very interesting. Supernatural things here. You fight with monsters, basically. And you basically are a guy that it's a supernatural detective there. He's got a lot of interesting stuff there. And it's very positive feedback from everybody that played the game. 60% off. Again, I think it's a good game for me to try also, because I like this kind of games, kind of XCOM like games. It's always my jam there. But yeah, and that I will wrap up this long episode for today with a plug on my Patreon. Again, but the Patreon is just for access support. I don't have anything exclusive here. It's just a way for people to do some support if they like to. Yeah, other than that, again, I will continue to try and do my Death Stranding live streams. We'll see if I can, if I implement kind of covering missing articles that I might have missed that I want to cover. But yeah, and then probably dive into that. Again, I still need to check the format there. It's something that occurred to me yesterday that I might do something like that. But yeah, other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. So until then, Kunami Master out.